Nala had always moved through life like a whisper, present but unnoticed. At 24 she had mastered the art of shrinking herself, slipping around her stepmother Aji's sharp commands and her stepsister Lyra's bitter laughter. Their home stood tall and respected in the village of Kurima, but inside, it felt like a narrow box where every breath Nala took was counted, measured and often criticized. Her father, once warm and full of stories, now moved like a shadow of himself. He spoke little, nodded often, and avoided conflict the way a wounded bird avoids the sky. Nala longed to reach him, to ask why he let silence replace love, but silence had become the only language he seemed fluent in. The annual harvest festival was the one time of year Nala could blend into the crowd without Aji's eyes piercing her back. Music pulsed through the dusty air, drummers beat rhythms that traveled into the bones, and dancers filled the square in swirls of bright Kent cloth. Nala wandered between the stalls, trying to feel the joy that everyone else seemed drenched in. That was when she first saw him. An old traveler, his back curved like a bow, sat by a wooden cart filled with odd trinkets, shimmering stones, carved masks, dried herbs tied with red string. But what drew Nala was the mirror. Its frame was carved with strange swirling symbols, almost like vines, yet they didn't match any craft from her village. The traveler watched her with eyes too alert for his age. "You see it, don't you?" he asked. Nala blinked. "See what?" He lifted the mirror and held it toward her. The glass shimmered as though touched by moonlight, though the sun sat high above. Nala stared at her reflection, tired eyes, gentle face, a sadness she never admitted to, but nothing unusual. Still, something tugged at her. The traveler pressed the mirror into her hands. "Take it," he said softly. "A gift." Nala shook her head. I cannot pay." "I do not want payment," he replied. "Only remember this." His voice dropped into a whisper that brushed her skin like cold fog. "This mirror refuses to lie." Before she could question him, he turned away. And when Nala spun to look again, he was gone. That night, long after the drums of the festival had faded and the moon had climbed silently above the rooftops, Nala sat on her sleeping mat with the mirror resting in her lap. She had meant only to examine it more closely, to understand why the traveler's words still buzzed around her like stubborn flies. But the moment she angled the mirror toward the lantern light, something shifted. Her reflection wavered, just slightly, like heat rising off desert sand. She leaned closer. Her face returned to normal. She exhaled in relief, until something moved behind her in the glass. A shadow. Nala jumped and spun around. Nothing. The room was still. Only the small carved stool sat in its usual corner, and the dried herbs hanging by the window swayed lazily. She turned back to the mirror. The shadow was gone. She told herself it was exhaustion, her imagination, the leftover haze of festival excitement. But sleep refused to come. The mirror rested beside her like a silent heartbeat. By morning, she nearly convinced herself nothing strange had happened, until she saw Aji. Her stepmother stood by the cooking fire, smiling that tight smile she used for visitors and important neighbors. But when Nala stepped closer, carrying the water pot, her hands shook. In the mirror's reflection, Aji's smile remained, but behind it, dark smoke curled around her head like a crown of thorns. Not real smoke, but something emotional, heavy and poisonous. Nala blinked hard. When she looked again, the smoke was still there. Aji's eyes flicked toward her. "Why are you staring?" Nothing," Nala murmured. She turned away quickly, heart pounding. What was happening? Why did the mirror show that? Later, when Lyra approached, laughing as she fiddled with a beaded bracelet, Nala froze. In reality, Lyra looked carefree, almost beautiful in the morning light. But the mirror showed something else, thin cracks crawling along her arms and face, as if her body were made of fragile clay. And beneath her smile, a flicker of bitterness glowed like a small ember. Nala clutched the mirror tighter. Her throat suddenly felt dry. Could this be what the traveler meant? She tested it further. When her father entered the courtyard, weary and silent as always, his reflection told a different story. His face in the mirror was blurred at the edges, fading in and out like someone slowly dissolving. He looked lost, hollow, drifting like smoke on wind. Nala's breath caught. Everyone had a shadow, a crack, a glow, something invisible yet visible. Something true. She tried putting the mirror away, hiding it under her cloths. But the pull was too strong. She found herself reaching for it again, testing it on every person who crossed near her home. Neighbors, children, even the goats nibbling grass at the fence. Every reflection revealed something beneath the surface. The mirror did not exaggerate. It did not soften. It did not lie. And Nala realized with a sinking heart, whatever this mirror was showing her, it was only the beginning. By the third day, Nala stopped pretending the mirror was ordinary. It had become a second pair of eyes that ignored the surface world and reached into the places where secrets curled up like sleeping serpents. And nowhere were the serpents more awake than inside her own home. Her father, a fading memory. Nala's father, Jabo, sat on his wooden stool in the courtyard as he always did, a man who once told stories with booming laughter but now spoke in murmurs. When Nala approached with the mirror pressed discreetly to her side, she felt the familiar ache of missing someone who was still alive. She lifted the mirror slightly. His reflection appeared, then wavered, then faded around the edges like old paint peeling off a forgotten wall. His shoulders looked smaller, his back curved, his face blurred as though the mirror couldn't grasp who he truly was. Nala swallowed hard. "Father? Are you all right?" she asked softly. Jabo blinked at her, confused, as if pulled out of a distant fog. "I'm fine, my child," he whispered, but even his voice sounded tired, hollow. But the mirror told her something else. He wasn't fine. He was disappearing, emotionally, spiritually, piece by piece. Aji, wrapped in vines of envy. Her stepmother Aji was next. Aji was a woman who kept her head high, her wrapper neat, her chin pointed like a blade. She ruled the household with a voice that cracked like a whip and eyes that missed nothing, except kindness. As Nala moved past her in the kitchen, she angled the mirror. What she saw made her stiffen. Thick, dark vines wrapped around Aji's reflection, twisting around her neck, crawling over her shoulders, clinging to her chest. They pulsed like living things. And from each vine sprouted small thorns that glowed a sickly green. Envy, jealousy, bitterness. Not simple emotions, but deep-rooted, choking vines. Nala gasped quietly. Aji turned sharply. "What are you doing?" Dropping a spoon, Nala lied quickly. But her heart hammered because the vines, they moved. Each time Aji spoke, they twisted more tightly. Nala stepped back. She had always known Aji disliked her, but she never imagined the hatred ran this deep. Lyra, two faces. Then came Lyra, beautiful, clever, cruel when she wanted to be. She was polishing her bangles, humming a sweet tune, her smile radiant like she hadn't a single worry in the world. But the mirror showed otherwise. Behind her real smiling reflection was another face. A second reflection. A hidden version of Lyra. The first face was bright, charming, perfect. The second twisted slightly to the side, lips curled in contempt, eyes narrowed like someone plotting a long-held revenge. The two faces overlapped, flickering like candlelight. Nala's stomach turned. "Why are you staring again?" Lyra snapped suddenly, noticing her gaze. Nala forced a smile. "Just thinking." Lyra scoffed. "Try thinking less. It doesn't suit you." But Nala barely heard her words. The mirror had revealed what she always suspected. Lyra lived two lives. One sweet like sugar cane, the other sharp like broken shells. A home of beautiful lies. That night, Nala sat alone in her room, hugging her knees to her chest, the mirror resting beside her like a silent witness. She had grown up believing her home was just a little harsh, a little cold, nothing more. She believed her father's distance was normal, Aji's strictness was discipline, Lyra's mockery harmless. But now she knew better. Her house was a garden of beautiful lies, each person tending their secrets carefully, watering them with silence, feeding them with fear. The mirror didn't show what they wanted the world to see. It showed what they truly were. And for the first time in her life, Nala whispered the truth to herself. "I am living among strangers." The night the reflection appeared, the air felt heavier than usual. The wind outside moved strangely, circling the compound in slow, deliberate breaths, as if something unseen was pacing in the dark. Nala lay awake, the moon spilling pale silver across her floor. Sleep avoided her, slipping away each time she closed her eyes. Her thoughts drifted back to the vines around Aji, the cracking face of Lyra, her fading father. Truth weighed on her chest like a stone. Finally, she sat up and reached for the mirror. Its surface was calm, too calm, like a lake holding its breath. She angled it toward herself. Her reflection appeared, but only for a moment. Then, slowly, another shape pushed into view. A head. Shoulders. Hair fallen in tangled curls. Nala froze. A girl, young maybe around her own age, stood in the reflection. But the girl was not Nala. Her skin was pale with dust, her eyes red and swollen as if she had been crying for hours. Tears glistened on her cheeks like drops of moonlight. There was no one else in the room. But in the mirror, the girl stood right behind Nala. Nala's breath caught, her fingers trembling around the wooden frame. Who are you?" she whispered even though her voice barely left her lips. The girl didn't answer. She just cried, soft, desperate sobs that didn't reach the air, but echoed inside the glass. Nala's heart thudded painfully. Instinct overshadowed fear. Slowly, she reached out and touched the mirror, her fingertips brushing the cold surface. The crying girl lifted her head. Her eyes, dark, haunted, shimmering with sorrow, locked onto Nala's. And then, in a voice so faint it felt like it came from the depths of water, she whispered, "Help me." The whisper vibrated through Nala's bones. Before she could speak, before she could breathe, the girl's image flickered. What? Then vanished entirely, leaving only Nala's terrified reflection staring back. The room fell silent. But the silence didn't last. A soft sound cracked through the air, tick, like ice breaking. Nala looked down. A thin line now stretched across the mirror's surface. Not a normal crack that came from dropping or hitting. This crack glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. It didn't break the glass, it lived inside it. As if the mirror itself had felt pain. Nala held it closer, her voice trembling. What happened? Who was she? The mirror remained still. But something new lingered in the room. A coldness that had not been there before, a presence that hovered just out of reach, like someone hiding in the shadows, waiting for her to understand. Nala set the mirror down carefully on her mat, her pulse refusing to slow. She had accepted the mirror showed truth. But this? A stranger crying in her reflection? A voice begging for help? This was more than truth. This was a call. A warning. A haunting. The mirror had cracked. Not because it was damaged, but because it felt her sorrow. Sleep never returned to Nala after the crying girl vanished from the mirror. Her skin prickled all night, her thoughts circling the same question like a hungry hawk. Who was that girl? By sunrise, she could no longer hold the questions inside her chest. She wrapped the mirror carefully in cloth and stepped quietly out of her room, determined to find answers. The compound felt different that morning, too still, too watchful. Even the chickens scratched the ground with caution, as if they sensed a disturbance. Nala found her father sitting beneath the mango tree, his hands trembling slightly as he polished a wooden carving he had made years ago. She hesitated, then sat beside him. "Father," she began softly, "may I ask you something?" Jabo looked at her with tired, distant eyes. "Ask." She swallowed. "Did you ever have another daughter?" His hand froze mid-polish. The carving slipped and fell into the dirt. For a moment he just stared at her, breathing unevenly, his face paling beneath his aging skin. "Where did you hear such a thing?" he whispered. Nala chose her words carefully. "I saw someone who looked like she was in pain." Jabo squeezed his eyes shut. No, Nala. You must forget this. Forget everything you think you saw." But his reaction only confirmed her suspicion. "Her name," Nala said quietly, "was Amara, wasn't it?" Jabo flinched. Before he could answer, Aji's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Enough." Nala turned sharply. Aji stood at the doorway, eyes blazing, her hands balled into fists. Behind her, the morning sun cast long, sharp shadows that stretched like claws. "You will never speak that name in this house," Aji hissed. "Never. Do you understand me?" Nala stared at her stepmother. "What? Who was she?" Aji stepped closer, her jaw clenched tight. "She died. That is all you need to know. Let the dead rest." Lyra appeared behind her mother, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "Honestly, Nala, you believe every silly story you hear?" But Nala's gaze remained fixed on Aji. The vines, the ones she saw in the mirror, flashed in her mind. Beautiful lies tangled around an ugly truth. Something had happened to Amara. Something no one wanted her to uncover. And the crying girl. Could she have been? Nala's thoughts halted abruptly. Because the mirror, wrapped inside the cloth on her lap, began to glow. A soft, pale light seeped through the fabric. Nala's breath hitched. It had never done that before. Without thinking, she whispered the name again in her mind. Amara. The glow brightened. Aji's eyes flicked toward the cloth. "What are you holding?" Nala quickly hid it behind her. "Nothing." But Aji was already stepping closer, suspicion sharp in her gaze. Nala stood abruptly. "I'm going to the stream." Before anyone could stop her, she hurried away, heart pounding, the glowing mirror pressed tight against her chest. As she reached the path outside the compound, the glow intensified, warm and pulsing like a living heartbeat. Every time the name formed on her tongue. Amara. The mirror responded. As if it recognized the name. as if it belonged to her, as if Amara herself was calling out from the shadows. Nala waited until everyone in the compound drifted into sleep. The night was heavy, thick with silence. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath, sensing something approaching. She sat on her sleeping mat, placed the mirror before her, and slowly unwrapped the cloth. The moment the glass touched the air, it reacted. A soft swirl of fog gathered inside the mirror, as if a cold wind had entered the glass but not the room. Nala pressed her palm to her chest. "What do you want to show me?" The fog thickened, stretching across the entire reflection until Nala could no longer see herself. The surface pulsed faintly like a slow heartbeat. Then the whisper began. Soft, layered, like several voices speaking underwater. Nala leaned in, her breath shallow. Suddenly the fog parted, and a scene formed inside the mirror. Aji burning letters. Nala gasped. There stood her stepmother Aji in the backyard, under the old avocado tree. But it wasn't the present night. It was a memory maybe years old. Aji knelt next to a fire pit, her face twisted with fury. In her hands were letters, many letters, some sealed, others half-torn. Nala squinted. On one torn envelope she saw a name. Jabo, her father. Another letter had a different name. Mara. Aji threw them into the fire, and flames devoured them instantly, curling the paper into black ash. Her lips moved furiously, but the mirror only gave faint echoes. No one will know. Good riddance. She deserved it. Nala covered her mouth, her heartbeat thundering. Why would Aji burn letters addressed to Amara? What had she been hiding all these years? Before she could blink, the mirror shifted again. Lyra stealing Nala's inheritance. A new vision appeared, Lyra sneaking into Jabo's room. Her stepsister moved like a thief in the night, opening trunk after trunk until she found a small carved wooden box. She pried it open and smirked at the contents, documents, jewelry, and a leather pouch filled with cowries and coins. Nala recognized it. It was the inheritance her mother left behind before she died. Lyra tied the pouch to her waist, slipped the jewelry into her cloth, and placed the documents under her wrapper. Then she whispered, "Nala will never know." Nala's stomach twisted in shock and betrayal. She had spent years thinking she had nothing, while her stepsister stole what was hers. The mirror pulsed again. Fog swirled. A third vision emerged. Her father being drugged into silence. This time the image was blurry at first, her father sitting at the dining table looking younger, stronger. Then Aji's silhouette entered the frame. She placed a bowl in front of him, soup steaming and thick. But before handing it over, she took a small pouch from her waist, opened it, and sprinkled powdered herbs into the bowl. Her expression was cold, calculating. Jabo took the bowl unaware. Within moments of eating, his eyes drooped, his shoulders slumped, and he began speaking slowly, words slurring. Nala flinched. This was the moment her father began to change. The moment he began fading. The moment silence took him. Aji had drugged him. Not once, regularly. The mirror let the scene play out. Jabo's voice cracked as he murmured, I feel strange. Aji leaned close and whispered in his ear. Good. Stay quiet, Jabo. Stay quiet. The fog swirled violently. The mirror trembled. The voices grew louder, echoing, mixing, crying, warning. Nala backed away, tears in her eyes. The fog snapped back into place, then cleared. Her own reflection returned, wide-eyed, horrified, trembling. The mirror had shown her the truth. Not gentle truth. Not bearable truth. But truth sharpened like a spear. Nala pressed a shaking hand over her heart. The darkness she lived with every day wasn't accidental. It wasn't fate. It was orchestrated. And now that she'd seen it all, she could never unsee it again. By dawn, Nala felt like the world had shifted beneath her feet. The mirror lay heavy in her hands, brighter than moonlight, warmer than fire. It wasn't just an object anymore. It was a living witness, a keeper of every secret buried in her home. And she was done being silent. Lyra was the first person she sought. She found her in the courtyard, adjusting her beads in the morning sun, swaying her hips to admire herself in a polished metal dish she used as a mirror. Her smile was sweet, smug, and painfully familiar. Lyra, Nala said, stepping forward. Lyra didn't look up. If this is about breakfast, talk to mother. This isn't about breakfast. Something in Nala's voice made Lyra pause. She lifted her chin, eyes narrowing. What do you want? Nala held up the mirror, the real one. I know what you did. Lyra blinked once, then threw back her head and laughed. Laughed loudly. Mockingly. Oh, please, Nala, she said, wiping an imaginary tear. What nonsense are you babbling now? You stole my inheritance. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, but her smile returned just as fast. What inheritance? If you had anything we would know. You. The girl who owns nothing? Please. Nala's grip tightened. The mirror showed me. I saw you. Lyra snorted. Your imaginary mirror visions again? You're losing your mind, sister. Nala stepped closer. Look inside it then. If you have nothing to hide. Lyra rolled her eyes. Fine. Give it here. Let's end this foolishness. She snatched the mirror from Nala's hands and tilted it toward herself. At first, she smirked at her reflection. Then the smirk faltered. What is? Her voice cracked. The reflection changed. Lyra's beautiful face dissolved into something twisted. Her smile warped, stretching too wide. Her eyes darkened, hollow and hungry. Cracks split across her skin like dried clay, revealing the rot of envy, greed, and deception beneath. Her reflection whispered words she once said in secret. I deserve everything. Nala is weak. No one will miss what she never had. Lyra stumbled back, gasping. The mirror pulsed once like a heartbeat. Then the monstrous reflection slammed its palms against the inside of the glass. Bim, making Lyra scream. No. Now stop. That's not me. Lyra cried, dropping the mirror to the ground. Stop. Stop. But the reflection didn't stop. It kept staring at her, its lips curling into a cruel smile. Her cruel smile. Nala stared breath-tight. She had wanted truth, but she didn't expect it to be this horrifying. Lyra fell to her knees, covering her face. Make it go away. Make it go away. The scream echoed through the compound, drawing Aji out instantly. What is happening here? Aji demanded, storming into the courtyard. Lyra pointed at Nala with shaking hands. Her mirror, it showed. Aji's eyes landed on the cracked, glowing mirror lying on the ground. Her expression darkened immediately. Pick that thing up, she snarled at Nala. Now. Nala didn't move. Aji marched forward, snatching the mirror herself. But the moment she touched it, she flinched, as if something inside it burned her palm. She dropped it instantly. This thing is cursed. Aji spat, rubbing her hand. Cursed by whoever gave it to you. Lyra crawled to her mother, sobbing. Mama, it showed me. Aji snapped, be quiet. But Nala stood tall, her voice steady and cold. It's not cursed, she said. It simply refuses to lie. Aji glared at her, fury trembling in every line of her face. You will get rid of it. Tonight. Or I will. Nala met her gaze unflinchingly. No, she whispered. I won't. The air tightened, thick enough to choke. Lyra sobbed. Aji seethed. Nala held her ground. And the mirror, glowing faintly, lay between them like a blade waiting to be lifted. The mirror had become more than an object. It was a key, one that could unlock the past, the secrets her family had buried deep beneath their smiles and carefully folded words. Nala didn't speak of it anymore, she didn't need to. The mirror guided her hands, showing her exactly where to look. It led her to the far corner of the main hall, near the hearth where Aji always said no one should linger. Nala knelt, tracing the patterns of the old floorboards. A faint glow pulsed under her fingers. Her heart pounded. She pried at the loose plank and found it, a small iron-bound box, its surface dust-covered, forgotten. She hesitated, breathing shallow. The mirror reflected the box with the glow of hidden truth, beckoning her closer. With trembling hands she lifted the lid. Inside lay remnants of a life stolen. A torn dress, delicate and once bright, frayed at the edges and smelling faintly of smoke. Burned letters, the ink smudged but partially readable. Names crossed out. Please for help. A small necklace, simple yet elegant, with a tiny pendant engraved with the name Amara. Nala's fingers trembled as she held the necklace. Her breath caught. This was her sister. Her father's other daughter. The one no one spoke of. She lifted the mirror closer, and suddenly the fog swirled, thicker than ever. Shapes moved inside, shadows of the past forming in painful clarity. The mirror replayed memory like a film. Aji and Lyra stood together in the hall years ago, whispers sharp and cruel. They circled Amara, young and defiant, unaware she had seen too much, heard too much. You know what must be done, Aji hissed. Her fingers traced a line of fire down the floor, symbolic of the path they would take. Lyra smiled, a cruel, calculating smile. She cannot outshine us. Not now, not ever. The scene shifted. Amara was cornered in a dim room. Aji held her firmly, Lyra watched like a predator. They argued, their voices low but venomous. "You'll regret this if anything happens," Amara whispered, trying to break free. "Regret? Only you will," Aji spat. The mirror flared and Nala gasped. She watched helplessly as shadows of the past played out. Amara being hidden, silenced, her belongings destroyed, her name erased from letters, from memory, from life. The last vision was the most cruel. Amara, exhausted, frightened, reaching for the doorway, but Lyra's hand struck, pushing her back. Aji's eyes gleamed, cold and unfeeling. Amara disappeared from the house. The mirror pulsed, faintly illuminating the room in Nala's hands. Nala clutched the necklace tightly, tears spilling freely. Her anger burned hotter than any sun. Her sister had been stolen, silenced, erased, all because of envy and greed. She looked toward the hallway. Aji's room. Lyra's room. The people she had called family were the architects of this horror. The mirror reflected them, glowing faintly, angry shadows, corrupt and writhing like snakes. Nala whispered, voice trembling yet fierce. "They tried to bury her. They tried to bury the truth. But the mirror will not lie. And neither will I." For the first time she felt the weight of power. The mirror was no longer just a guide. It was an ally. It had chosen her as the one to uncover what was hidden, to expose what had been lost. And now Nala knew exactly what had to be done. The house had secrets, but she was ready to bring them all into the light. By evening the house was heavy with unease. The air seemed thicker than usual, vibrating with an invisible tension that prickled Nala's skin. The mirror lay on the floor, its surface glowing faintly, almost breathing. She called them, her family, one by one, using the authority that the mirror had gifted her. Aji came first, her sharp eyes narrowing. "What is this now?" she demanded, noticing the faint light reflecting off the mirror's frame. Nala held it steady. "It's time to see the truth, mother. Time to see who you really are." Aji's lips curled into a sneer. "I am who I've always been. Don't try to." But the mirror flared suddenly, brighter than moonlight. Aji froze. Her reflection shimmered in the glass. At first she saw herself as she wanted the world to see, perfect, composed, unyielding. Then the mirror's magic took hold. The smile twisted. Her skin began to crack like ancient clay, revealing lines and shadows she had buried deep. With every lie she had ever told, her face decayed further. Envy, malice, selfishness, etched into every line, every wrinkle. Aji screamed, stumbling back, trying to avoid the mirror, but it followed her. Every lie she thought hidden was now visible, flashing in the air around her. Her hands clawed at her face, her breath quickening, panic overtaking pride. Nala's father, Jabo, stepped forward, trembling. "Enough, Nala." But the mirror turned toward him next. His reflection blurred, twisting, then solidified. He saw himself clearly for the first time. The distance he had kept, the silences he had allowed, the protection he had failed to give. Every moment he ignored his daughters, every unspoken word, every withheld embrace. It all appeared before him raw and sharp. His knees buckled. The shame, the grief, the guilt weighed him down. He whispered, voice cracking, I didn't know." Lyra approached, trying to grab the mirror, to shield herself. "Stop. Stop it," she screamed. But the mirror would not be stopped. Her reflection changed instantly. The charming face dissolved, revealing hollowness beneath, a black void where empathy should have lived. Her eyes, once sparkling, turned empty, her lips curling in unnatural mimicry of smiles she had practiced all her life. The reflection whispered her secret thoughts aloud, every lie, every petty betrayal, every time she had smiled while plotting harm. Lyra fell to her knees, shivering, hands over her face, sobbing uncontrollably. The mirror pulsed, as if satisfied with the truths now revealed. Nala watched, heart pounding. For years she had been invisible, silenced, overlooked. But now the mirror was her ally, and for the first time her family faced her world, their world of lies, cruelty, and betrayal exposed. Aji screamed again, now at her own reflection, rage and fear intermingling. Lyra trembled, caught in the gravity of her empty soul. Her father wept, finally seeing the harm silence had wrought. Each fell to their knees, not in submission to Nala, but in submission to the truth. The mirror's glow dimmed slightly, as if acknowledging its work was done, for now. Nala felt a tremor of power and clarity rush through her. This house, built on deceit and hidden pain, was finally facing itself. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "The mirror does not lie. And neither will I." The room was quiet, heavy with shame, revelation, and the beginnings of reckoning. Nala looked down at the mirror, her reflection steady and true. Her family had faced themselves. And for the first time she felt that justice was no longer something distant or imagined. It was real. The mirror pulsed gently, a heartbeat in the quiet house. Nala knelt before it, still trembling from the judgments it had revealed. The room was heavy with the scent of smoke and fear. Her family collapsed in silence around her. Then from the depths of the glass, a soft, sorrowful voice broke through. Nala? Her breath caught. She knew that voice. The one that had whispered for help days ago. The crying girl. She leaned closer. The fog inside the mirror thickened, swirling until it took shape. First a shadow, then a figure, small, fragile, trembling. The girl stepped closer within the reflection, eyes glistening, soaked with unshed tears. Nala's heart froze. Amara? The girl nodded. Yes, I am Amara. Your sister. Your father's daughter. And they tried to erase me. The mirror's surface shimmered. Slowly, Amara's figure stepped beyond the glass, her form solidifying into the room itself. Moonlight glinted off her dark hair, tears tracing pale lines across her cheeks. Her eyes were filled not just with sorrow but with a quiet strength. Nala reached out instinctively. Amara's hand met hers, warm yet ethereal, as though she was both spirit and flesh. Nala whispered, tears spilling freely, I didn't know. I didn't know what happened to you. Amara shook her head. You couldn't have. Aji and Lyra silenced me before the world could hear. They feared the truth, my life, my name, everything I represented. They feared what I could expose. Nala's chest ached. She remembered the letters, the torn dress, the stolen inheritance, the drugged father. I've seen it all, through the mirror. Amara's gaze softened. You've seen, yes. And now you can help. Not for revenge, Nala. Not for hatred. Justice, that is what I ask. Let them face what they've done. Let the truth breathe. Nala nodded slowly, determination rising. I will. I promise. Not revenge, but justice. Amara's lips curved into a faint, relieved smile. She stepped fully from the mirror, her form solid and radiant. The fog within the glass dissipated, leaving only Nala's own reflection, steady and honest. You see me, Amara whispered, voice quivering but clear. Finally, I am seen. Finally, I am here. Nala took a deep breath, holding her sister's hands in hers. The weight of years, the silence that had choked their family, seemed to lift slightly in that moment. Amara's eyes wandered to Aji and Lyra, both kneeling, shaken and exposed. They must learn what their actions have cost, she said softly. Not just to me, but to everyone around them. Nala nodded. Yes, they will see. And we will make sure they never silence the truth again. Amara's form shimmered slightly, the glow of the mirror still lingering on her skin. She looked at Nala with gratitude and quiet pride. You are brave. You are strong. You have been chosen to carry this burden, and you have done so with heart, not hatred. Nala smiled faintly through her tears. I will not fail you, sister. The room seemed to exhale. The mirror's surface was now calm, reflecting both sisters' images, solid, unbroken, truthful. Amara's spirit was no longer hidden. She was present, seen, and ready to help set things right. For the first time in years the house felt lighter. Not because the past had vanished, but because the truth had finally been given a voice. And that voice, strong and steady, was Amara's. The night was thick with tension, the air trembling as if holding its breath. Nala held the mirror between her hands, Amara's presence beside her like a steady flame. The house was quiet, the shadows long and watchful, waiting. Then without warning the mirror pulsed one last time. A brilliant light filled the room, white and blinding, stretching into every corner, curling around each shadow, seeping into every secret. The surface rippled like water, then shattered. Not from violence, not from impact, but from completion. The shards glowed softly for a moment, then dimmed, scattering reflections across the walls. Each fragment carried a piece of truth, spilling it into every corner of the household. The fog, the illusions, the hidden lies, they all dissolved, swept away like leaves in a storm. Aji fell back, clutching her face. Her carefully maintained composure crumbled. The envy, the greed, the years of manipulation, they were no longer hidden. The neighbors who had gathered outside, sensing the commotion, whispered in disbelief. The truth had escaped the house and it spread like wind. Lyra shrank back, staring at the fragments of the mirror reflecting her hollow, monstrous reflection. Her confident sneer had vanished, replaced with a raw, open fear. She had played the game for years, weaving lies into every smile, every word, but now her reputation was gone. The whispers would follow her forever. Jabo, Nala's father, sank to his knees in the center of the room. His hands shook as he faced the wreckage, tears streaming down his cheeks. The weight of silence, the years he allowed cruelty to reign, bore down on him now. He reached out, voice hoarse with emotion. "Forgive me, Nala. Forgive me, Amara. I was blind and I allowed this to happen. I was silent when I should have spoken, weak when I should have protected you both." Nala knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. She placed a hand over his. "It's not just your fault, father. But it's never too late to make it right." Amara stepped forward, her ethereal glow soft but steady. "The past cannot be undone, but the truth can be honored. The lies have been broken. Let this house remember honesty from now on." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying whispers of the household sins to the village beyond. The neighbors murmured of Aji and Lyra's misdeeds, greed, envy, betrayal, all laid bare by the mirror that refused to lie. The fragments on the floor shimmered one last time, then dimmed to dull shards. The mirror had done its work. It had revealed every hidden cruelty, every betrayal, every injustice. And now it rested, broken yet whole in its purpose. Nala rose, her chest swelling with relief and newfound strength. She looked around the room at her family, broken, humbled, but finally facing the truth. The house that had been built on lies would never be the same again. And for the first time, Nala felt the weight of freedom settle over her shoulders, light yet powerful, a promise that truth, once revealed, could never be hidden again. Dawn crept into the village, soft and golden, spilling across the rooftops and dusted paths. Nala stood at the edge of her home, the morning breeze tugging lightly at her hair, carrying with it a sense of renewal. The shattered mirror lay carefully wrapped and stored in a small wooden chest, its purpose fulfilled. Its shards no longer held power, yet the truth it revealed lingered in every corner of her life. The villagers began to gather slowly, drawn by whispers of the night's events. They had heard tales, murmurs of Aji's envy exposed, Lyra's deceit revealed, and a father's long-suppressed guilt finally laid bare. Nala had become a figure of quiet authority, the one who had faced the darkness of her family and emerged as something more, a keeper of truth. Her steps were measured as she approached the crowd. Eyes wide with curiosity, awe, and a touch of fear followed her. Mothers tugged their children closer. Elders nodded respectfully. The village had long suffered under hidden cruelties and whispered lies, but Nala had shown them the power of transparency, of courage in confronting darkness. Amara's spirit remained near, luminous and calm, watching from the corner of Nala's vision. The necklace, once a token of stolen childhood and silenced life, now rested against Nala's chest, a reminder of the sister she had saved in memory if not in time. Nala raised her voice, steady and resolute, addressing the villagers. "The mirror may have broken, but the truth it revealed will not. Let this village remember that dishonesty may build walls, but honesty strengthens the foundation of our lives." The crowd murmured in agreement. They had witnessed the effects of concealment, the suffering left unspoken, the harm hidden behind polite smiles. But they also witnessed restoration, redemption, and the courage it took for one young woman to demand accountability. Inside her home, Aji and Lyra moved carefully, shadows of their former arrogance softened into caution. They had been forced to confront their own failings, their faces carrying the weight of shame and understanding. Aji approached Nala slowly, hands folded, bowing her head. "I will live differently," she said quietly. "The lies, they have cost me everything I once valued." Lyra, tears still streaking her cheeks, whispered, "I will try to be honest, even if it's painful." Her voice wavered, the hollow space the mirror had revealed within her now replaced by tentative self-awareness. Nala nodded, accepting their repentance without bitterness. Justice had not demanded vengeance, it had demanded recognition, acknowledgement, and change. The mirror had chosen her, but the responsibility was hers to wield with wisdom, compassion, and courage. Over the following weeks, Nala transformed her life. She restored the letters, repaired what could be repaired, and ensured Amara's memory was honored. She worked quietly with the villagers, encouraging openness in disputes, fairness in dealings, and transparency in every household. Stories of deceit, long buried, were confronted and resolved. A culture of truth began to grow, seeded by Nala's bravery and the lessons the mirror had imparted. The village's landscape seemed to shift alongside its people. Walls once erected for hiding secrets were replaced with open spaces for dialogue. The marketplace thrived, guided by honesty and fairness. Even children began to learn the value of truth through Nala's example. that it was not punishment but power, not cruelty but freedom. At night, Nala would sometimes glance toward the chest holding the broken mirror. Though its glass no longer reflected, she could still feel its presence. A quiet pulse, a reminder that truth, once revealed, never truly disappears. She imagined Amara smiling at peace, finally seen and honored. The villagers often recounted the story of the mirror, its lessons spreading beyond Nala's home. And each time the story was told, the refrain became a mantra. A mirror may break, but truth never dies. Nala walked through the village, shoulders straight, eyes bright, carrying both the weight and the blessing of her role. She had been chosen not because she sought power, but because she dared to face what others hid. She had become the guardian of honesty, the keeper of what was right, the woman the mirror had chosen. And in the quiet moments, when the sun dipped low and shadows lengthened across the earth, Nala felt the soft, enduring presence of her sister beside her. A silent promise that even when life seemed shattered, the light of truth would always endure.